Nicola Sturgeon was furious at the Chancellor's pledge of extra funding for Holyrood, claiming they had been shortchanged. In the Chancellor's budget on Wednesday, Hammond said the move would mean an extra £2 billion for the Scottish Government. The leader of the Scottish Conservatives began First Minister's questions by asking why the SNP were so upset with the way the Chancellor would be handing the money to Scotland. She said, in a parliamentary answer a few weeks ago, the Scottish Government confirmed that the first £50 million of this fund will come from the financial transaction budget. BBC Nicola Sturgeon claimed the government's £2 billion pledge was a con. That is a method of funding that was yesterday described by the Finance Secretary, Derek Mackay, as a con. Of course, when the First Minister announced her big Scottish growth scheme last year, she used different language. She said, "This is a £500 million vote of confidence in Scottish business, Scottish workers and the Scottish economy. Now, like everyone else in this chamber, I would welcome £500 million investment in the Scottish economy if any pennies of it were ever to appear quite soon, but I am just curious as to whether the First Minister can explain why when the Scottish Government uses this method to invest in Scotland, it is a vote of confidence, and when the UK Government does it, it's a con. Let me explain exactly why the Chancellor of Exchequer's announcement in the budget yesterday is accurately described as a con." Nicola Sturgeon, the First Minister, stood up and defended why the SNP had branded the pledge a con before she was ridiculed in the chamber. She said, "Let me explain exactly why the Chancellor of Exchequer's announcement in the budget yesterday is accurately described as a con." Ms. Sturgeon was swiftly interrupted by the Conservative benches, who burst out laughing and mocked her remark. The First Minister continued, He stood up, and he said, without qualification, that his budget would deliver an extra £2 billion for Scotland. Here is what the Fraser of Allender Institute said yesterday about the £1.1 billion of that, which is in the form of financial transactions. It cannot be used to support day-to-day spending on public services. Sunday, April 9, 2017. Men, the color of their tie is the most difficult decision they have to make every day, so the Chancellor tried to give the impression that this was somehow a big boost to our health service, education system, to public services, to the length and breadth of the country. But as Ruth Davidson knows, that is far from the truth. Holyrood will receive its £2 billion windfall via the Barnett formula as a result of spending decisions south of the border. It covers 4 years, including the current year, with £1.1 billion coming from so-called financial transactions, which are used to underwrite private sector investment. Ms. Sturgeon welcomed announcements on oil and gas, and on that as overdue, but tweeted the extra spending had much less to it than meets the eye, and would still leave the Scottish Government revenue budget facing a £239 million next year.